Hello, and welcome to the Gardening for Change podcast, where we talk about our community's social and environmental climate and what we can do to change it. I'm Erin, and today we are joined by Miss Tasha Giffin, an AP European History teacher at Del Norte High School, leader of our Equity and Anti-Racism Task Force, and PUSD Teacher of the Year in 2021. Thank you so much for joining us today, Miss Giffin.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How do you get involved with activism?
Sure. Well, this is my maybe fifth year teaching. And from even the beginning of my teaching career, I always felt like one of the things that I loved about being a high school teacher was getting to inspire students to be change makers. And so I think that my getting involved in activism happened while trying to inspire my own students to do the same. So I feel like my journey has been a lot about being a teacher and then teaching about how to go out and impact the community and the world around us. And some of that also comes from my own experiences. I went to college at Berkeley, and I was surrounded by people who were pretty passionate about different causes, and also being biracial and having that experience with my own identity, and realizing that helping students to embrace their identity and to find what they're passionate about was important. And so that's also something that led me, I think, to the Equity Anti-Racism Task Force, is because all of those things kind of come together with our task force in celebrating our identities and diversity and finding your passion and wanting to go out and make a difference. And so throughout all my teaching, I've always tried to do that in the classroom, and now I'm getting to do it outside the classroom as well with the task force.
That's really amazing, really inspiring. And I'm sure many of our listeners are already familiar with the work that the task force has done, promoting diversity on campus and drawing attention to how discrimination affects students. But for those who aren't, what are some of the things you and the student task force have accomplished or promoted on campus?
Well, in the 2 years now that we have been doing this work in equity, starting at the beginning of last year, some of the things that we've accomplished include putting on student panels so that students get their voices heard. We had an Asian panel during AAPI Awareness Month, and we did a Hispanic panel. We also have done a couple panels for staff where students of different identities and different backgrounds have gotten to talk about their experiences. So those have been some really great accomplishments, because the students have gotten their voices heard, and also it has impacted other students and to want to either raise their own voices or to get involved. And then celebrating the different months for just celebrating diversity on our campus has been a great accomplishment, because I think we're changing the culture at our school to be even more inclusive and more aware. And so from celebrating diversity, which we had Pride Month, and we had the Black History Month, and Native American Heritage Month, to also raising awareness about neurodiversity and different disabilities, things like that. Both of those have been really valuable, I think, in making our campus feel more inclusive, and for students to know that our campus is committed to celebrating diversity.
Really amazing. I've seen some of the panels you talked about, the one for AAPI month, and I think it's just a lot of people aren't really aware about um, the racism that still happens on campus, the microaggressions that people of color still experience. And I think it's amazing that you're helping bring more awareness to that.
We're actually going to be doing a school-wide lesson on microaggressions coming up here at the end of the month. So I think that's great to hear that you enjoyed learning more about that, because I think it's important to realize that it's not something that necessarily is intentional or with malice, but that it still does happen. So it's really important for us to learn about it and be aware of our different students and their experiences, so that we can develop more of that empathy and understanding, and to promote a climate where people don't feel like they're other, or feel embarrassed, or that their identity doesn't fit in.
Absolutely. I've heard that you've diversified the AP European History curriculum in your class, and I think that's really great. Can you tell us a little more about those changes and why you think they're important?
Sure. Well, I think that for me, the thing that I have enjoyed the most of creating new lessons for our European history is to bring out some of the parts of history that have not been included in our textbook, where, since it is European history, but any of our curriculum tends to focus more on Western European, or a more Euro-centered view of history. And so what I've tried to do is to bring in groups that are not highlighted in our textbook. And a lot of times those are marginalized groups of different races, but it also could be people, like women who are not a minority group, but have also not been highlighted as much in our textbooks, or even figures who experience different things, such as if they have a disability, or they are part of the LGBTQ community, or groups that just aren't highlighted because they're not considered, what I would say in our history books are more of the mainstream culture. And so creating those lessons that highlight the accomplishments and the culture and the resilience, I have really enjoyed bringing that out, and not just talking about the struggles of marginalized groups, but what amazing things they have brought to our world, and how they've created such a rich culture, or how they've modeled resilience, even despite some of the challenges that they've had. So for me, I really enjoy learning about just the inspiration of different groups, that they have, what they've gone through in history. And so that's the basis for the lessons. And the lessons for us, we've tried to really look at people of color in Europe and the different movements that we learn about, because whether it be art or science, I just want to bring out that there are people of color that maybe didn't get included in our textbook, and to show that they are just as important to forming the history of our world as those that have been highlighted more often.
That's fantastic. Our history books are very white and very male centric. And I know it's a lot worse in lots of other states. California is still very progressive, and we still have a long ways to go in that regard. I've also heard that the task force has already brought about school-wide curriculum changes in many English classes. Is there anything you could tell us about those changes?
So I probably don't have as much detailed information as an English teacher, but I do know that on our task force, we have English teachers, and they have shared that they've totally revamped their curriculum to include authors of color and just more diverse identities within the literature that they're reading. And so that, along with our new ethnic literature course that's been introduced, has really helped to diversify the exposure that our students are having to different authors from different backgrounds. And from what I've heard, so many good things from students that they've really enjoyed the new readings and the new curriculum in ethnic literature. And my son happens to have taken the first section of ethnic lit and really enjoyed the books. Just Mercy was one of the books that they're reading, and I read that book too and really enjoyed it. So I think these are just opening up their minds and perspectives of people from different backgrounds.
That's great. This is kind of a hard question, continuing along the teaching line of thought. But there are a lot of discussions being had about how teachers and their students should read literature and primary sources with racist slurs and other bigoted language. And some people think that they shouldn't be taught at all, and others are saying that not teaching them is erasing this history that we need to acknowledge in order to move forward from. I'm not sure whether you've had to face this particular issue in your classes, but where do you stand on it?
So that's a great question. And I think that's something that we've had a lot of discussions about. And since I'm not an English teacher in my own curriculum, I haven't really come across too many situations. I can't think of one where I had to decide if I was going to continue to teach a piece, of literature. However, I do see both sides, and we've had a similar discussion when we talk about like the removal of statues and about with history, how like if you take down, all of these statues, or if you try to like eliminate, teaching about any person who is racist or that type of thing, are we erasing history? And what I do believe about those things is that you don't need to erase it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the centerpiece of things. So like if you have a statue, do you need that to be in the city square, or can that be put in a museum in an exhibit where it talks about how, there were good and bad things about this person, and that, it's not okay, the racist things that were done. But also there is also good contributions. And if we start to erase every person that has done anything racist, will all of our founding fathers, then what do we do about that? We don't teach about them. So for history, I think, that's important to have. You can't completely erase it, but you also need to be very just aware of, and not ignore that they did bad things, and that needs to be pointed out, that that's not okay. And so for like the literature, I don't necessarily think that we need to teach some of those books that maybe have a lot of the like racial slurs, or they maybe, if you looked at it from a perspective of a student of color, like how they would experience it, if it's going to be really traumatizing or make them uncomfortable, then I don't think that needs to be the main piece of literature. Maybe it can be a choice and something that people can choose from. I don't think it should be banned forever, that nobody should be able to read it. But I think there might be choices that might celebrate diversity better, and that we don't necessarily need to be stuck on the traditional titles that have always been taught just because they've always been taught. I'd like to be able for us to look and see if maybe there would be a book or a piece of literature that would be more enriching to all students, and to empower them and inspire them. And if that book that has the racial slurs in it is not the best, or doesn't really add a lot of positive things, then I definitely am all for like revamping the curriculum to be something that would be more appropriate for our day and age, when students are, more aware of diversity and being inclusive and being celebratory. And I think that is the most important thing, is that we're learning to be kind and to lift each other up and to change the world, not necessarily just stuck in what is history and, well, this is how it's always been done, so we don't want to upset the status quo.
That's a really, really nuanced perspective. I think there are a lot of people with some really strong opinions about this topic, and that that for me seems really, really balanced, right? We need to acknowledge history, but we don't need to glorify like the many, many dark parts of our past.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing. Kind of changing topics here. Are there other programs in the district that are promoting equity and diversity at other schools? And can you tell us anything about them?
So one of the groups that is pretty active, like at Mount Carmel, is the Diversify Our Narrative group, which we do have a chapter at Del Norte that's kind of starting up, and the district, there's a district-wide group for Diversify Our Narrative as well, and I think that is a really great movement. And that's exactly what we were just talking about, is just looking at curriculum and how to diversify the curriculum. So I know that's happening. And then I've seen recently our Black Student Union group has been working a lot with the other campuses with their Black Student Union groups and cooperating with them on what they're doing at each of the campuses. And we're in talks to put on maybe a joint student panel, a Black student panel with all students from all the different campuses in Poway Unified. And so that's happening. And then on all the campuses, there is a staff team, teachers and administrators that are continuing the equity trainings that we started last year. And they're kind of tasked with doing the type of equity work that our task force is doing at Del Norte. I know a lot of them are in the earlier stages. So Del Norte is fortunate that we were able to start last year, and we have done so much in that area. So we get to be a little bit of the trailblazers and inspiration for what can happen when students are involved. And I think that's the testament to our students at Del Norte, is that the reason that we've gone so far is because they have been passionate and have been pushing and willing to partner with our administrators and teachers to do that. And so we're looking forward to seeing that on the other campuses in Poway Unified, hopefully soon.
Absolutely. I think it's great that Del Norte is kind of setting an example in the school district. Do you feel like that puts any pressure on you as you move forward? Does it change the way you do things at all?
Knowing that we are actually kind of doing it first, and that people will look at what we're doing, definitely is in my mind. But instead of making me putting pressure, I think for me, it's actually helped me to light a fire and to be it's not just for us, it's actually for everyone. And so it's made me want to do it even better. And it's been a way for me to motivate our task force students to say, this is not just for you guys, you're setting an example for all of these students to come. And whenever we go through difficult times, because we definitely do struggle and feel sometimes alone, or that there's a lot of challenges and it's not easy work, I always just remind them that you are doing this and you're fighting the fight so that other students don't have to have such a hard time, because the more that it's done and the more that we can figure out the easiest way or the best way to do it, then we can tell these other groups, and they don't have to necessarily go through as much of the struggle. We can help them And so I think it's actually motivating, and it's helped us to keep going maybe when things get difficult.
Really inspiring. You mentioned some challenges that you faced. Are there any in particular that you'd care to share?
I think that one of the difficulties is just, especially going back with in person, and as we continue to navigate this global pandemic, that there are a lot of things pulling our students in different directions, and they're trying to, thrive in school academically, which is not an easy task at Del Norte. And then they're trying to be activists on campus, and balance like how much time and effort and emotional energy that takes. And so one of the greatest challenges is to continue to have enough of our members to participate in all of our activities, to tackle like the vision. A lot of times we have this huge vision of what we want to happen, for each of our events and months, and that takes like all hands on deck. And then as people are out with COVID, or or things come up with school, and we don't have as many people that can come and help, it's hard work to do alone. It's hard work to do with a small group. And so we want to continue to get, more students involved and to keep growing our numbers. And that's difficult when you have so many demands going on. And I think with COVID, it just adds another challenge in there. So that's one of the things that we will continue to figure out, is how to keep up the momentum and keep up the energy and keep our involvement, and be able to inspire people to want to do this work even when things get busy and there's challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. High school is tough, and COVID is incredibly challenging for everyone. But I think you guys are doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
So you mentioned earlier about collaborating with other schools and about having a microaggression workshop sometime in the future. Do you have any other plans moving forward? Any big ideas, goals?
Well, our big thing right now is Black History Month is in February. So it's been really exciting for us to plan our events for February, because last year we had just really gotten started on a lot of our activities. So by this time of the year, Black History Month was the first month that we celebrated kind of as a whole school, and we were still not in person then. So we didn't get to do a panel. We didn't do the decorations on the campus. The things that we've done since then and really found have worked well, we didn't get to do that for Black History Month. So we're looking forward to getting a chance to celebrate Black History Month on campus in person, to do those things. And so that's something. And today we're actually making posters that we'll use to decorate the halls during and in the classrooms next month. And they're looking awesome. So that was fun. So yeah, we're excited about that. And then our equity anti-racism students won a really big honor from the San Diego County, which was the Lighthouse Award, for being kind of a beacon of light for equity work on campus as students. And so we get to send a group of representatives to the Equity Conference, which was supposed to be today, actually, but it got postponed because of COVID, but it'll be in May. So we're looking forward to attending that, because it's a really inspirational conference, and our students get to go and attend and then bring back what they learn from the conference to our task force. And hopefully that will continue to make an impact on our campus. So we're looking forward to that. And Jael, our our president gets to be on a student panel for the conference, which is, a county-wide conference. And so that's exciting. So those are some things we're looking forward to.
That sounds fantastic. And congratulations to you and all of your students.
Thank you.
So I feel like I might know the answer to this question already, but I'll ask it anyways. How do you suggest Del Norte students get more involved?
So I would love for them to come to our task force meetings and to join our task force. It is open to all our students at any time. We really invite anyone who is interested to come. We have our student meetings once a month, the first Thursday of each month, and then our full task force meetings with teachers and administrators and students on the second Thursday of each month. So if anyone is interested in getting involved, that's the first step, because if they come to our meetings, then they hear all about the events. But even if, they don't have time to join the task force meetings, every month we're doing activities where they can join in on the 31st, which is the day off of school for students. It'll be our professional growth day for teachers. We are going to be decorating for Black History Month. And so any students who are interested in coming to help us decorate to celebrate Black history can come to campus that day. So we'll be doing it from 9:30 to 11:30 and then 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So that's a way to kind of, just get a little involved, meet some people, and it's really fun. It's like celebration. And so those are some things, but on top of being like officially, in the task force or doing activities, I think that any student can get involved in equity work on a daily basis by just modeling what it means to have empathy and to be aware of your fellow students and the diversity that we have as human beings and all of our different identities. And some of the probably greatest impact you can make is just by being sensitive to your friends and all of their different experiences and celebrating them and being inclusive. And so just, by valuing each other and all the things that we bring and being good listeners to each other, wanting to know more about each other. I mean, I think that's what we're looking for, is a culture of celebration and inclusion on campus. And the more that students can do that just with their group of friends or in their classes, that's going to make as big an impact as coming and being a part of a group or club or event. So I would just say you can start now, and in your everyday life you can embody what it means to be inclusive and to celebrate diversity.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm going to go ahead and add that January 31st event to my calendar.
Awesome.
And with that, I think we're going to wrap up our interview. Thank you so much for being here with us, Ms. Giffin.
Well, thank you again.
And thank you all for listening. Make sure to tune into our next episode coming to you soon.